Alright guys, what is up? And today I'm coming at you with a deck profile on a deck I have been waiting so long. I've been really excited to build and play test and show you guys. And as you can tell, it is none other than Super Quantum's, yes, the Power Ranger deck, of course. As soon as I heard about this deck, I was like, dude, if we get this in the TCG, I'm going to play it. And then I saw they're coming out in Ring Raiders, and I'm like, dude, I got to build this deck like as soon as possible. Play tested online, and kind of got a build that works out pretty well. I may play around with it some more. But for now, this deck's pretty solid, pretty consistent, does basically what the deck's supposed to do, and get out the Megazord as quickly as possible. But yeah, I'll just go ahead and get into the deck itself. So starting with the monsters, 3 Red Layer, or Red Pilot, or Red Ranger, whatever you want to call them. All Super Quantums have effects whenever they're summoned, and whenever they're sent to the graveyard. And then Red Layer's effect is that if you control no monsters, you can special summon him, and then whenever he is summoned, you can target a Super Quantum card in your graveyard and add to your hand. So if your field spell's in the graveyard, you can just add it back with Red Layer. And then whenever Red Layer is sent to the graveyard, you can target a Super Quantum monster in your graveyard except Red Layer special summon, but its effects are negated. So that's the only downside though. But he's just kind of like your easy, kind of... A lot of people compare it to Cyber Dragon. But in all honesty, he's more closely similar in effect to Primitive Butterfly. And I'll see if I can find a copy and show you guys. Where is it? Apologize for this, it's kind of random. Yeah, this card that came out at Cross Souls. They basically have the same effect where if you control a monster, you can special summon it, and then they're both level 5, so it's more close to Primitive Butterfly. Red Layer is just like an easy special summon, and then you really want to save your normal summon just for your Green Layer, but Red Layer is just really, really great. The next 3 copies of Super Quantum Green Layer. Whenever Green Layer summon, you can special summon a Super Quant monster from your hand. And then if he's sent to the graveyard, you discard a Super Quant card and draw 1 card. So he's kind of like a mini draw engine. And plus, if your Super Quants get sent to the graveyard, you can draw a card and their effects will trigger. So he's just really great. Also a level 4, so you can make plays with him. And then 3 copies of Blue Layer, the female Super Quantum. Super Quantum Blue Layer is probably my favorite out of all the Super Quantums, because her effect is really, really good. Or both of them, actually. Her first effect is whenever she's summoned, you add a Super Quant card from your deck to your hand, so she searches out your Fairy, she searches out your Pilots, and she can also search out the Field Spell. And then when she's sent to the graveyard, you can target 3 Super Quantum cards in your graveyard, and shuffle them back into the deck. So she constantly recycles stuff in graveyard, and constantly makes sure you have stuff in deck for more targets for all of your Super Quantum plays. And then 3 copies of Super Quantum Fairy Alphon. This guy is basically Cosmo Tin Can. His first effect, I rarely use it, where you can target a Super Quant monster you control, and all face-up monsters you currently control become that monster's level. But I'm mainly playing for his Tin Can effect, where you can tribute him, target 3 Super Quantum monsters in your deck, and then you shuffle them, and your opponent randomly selects 1, and then special summons it, and then the other 2 get sent to grave. So... this guy, you normal summon him, tribute him off, then you pick a red, a green, and a blue, and then you shuffle them up. Alright, so here's our 3 Super Quantum cards, so we're going to pick this one. So we pick blue, and then the other 2 get sent to grave, red and green. The blue's effect will trigger along with green, which is optional, but you're also going to want to do Red Layer. And then you special summon the green with red's effect. And then blue's effect, where you can add a Super Quantum card from your deck to your hand. So you can add the field spell. And then if you have 2 cards in hand, you can automatically go into 2 or 3 Zords, which is really, really cool. So there's just like so many crazy combos you can do with this deck and just make really, really explosive plays. And then also I play 3 copies of Volcanic Shell. And 3 copies of Thunder Dragon. These both serve the same purpose of constantly having discard fodder for your field spell. Thunder Dragon, you can just discard it and add the other 2, and then that's ready to make 2 Zords. But Volcanic Shell, in my opinion, is better just because Thunder Dragon, it just sits in your hand. But it's just good to have it as an option. It's kind of like something you're kind of forced to play in a way, because I don't know what I would put in if I took out the Thunder Dragons. But Volcanic Shell, if you can get all 3 of your Super Quantum monsters on the field, your red, green, and blue, and the field spell on your opponent doesn't stop it, you basically have the Megazord, where you discard Volcanic Shell for the field spell's effect, target the first one, summon the first Zord shell effect, pay 500, add the other one, discard the other one, target another one, and then you just go on from there, and then you have your 3 Zords. And then you send the field spell to grave, and then you have your Great Magnus right there. So it's really, really good. Thunder Dragon also helps just to have discard fodder. Once you get down to kind of the 3rd one, again, like I said, he just kind of sits there and he's kind of a dead card. Then also play 2 copies of Star Drawing. Star Drawing is a really great tech in here because you can use it to either go into your Ouroboros or your Magna Liger plays. Where if he's used for an Xyz summon, you can treat him as a level 5 also. And then where he's used for an Xyz material, you get to draw a card. So he just kind of helps refill your hand, gets out to your Zords a lot easier, and he can also go for, like I said, either Ouroboros or Magna Liger. And that wraps it up for the monsters. Moving on to spells, 3 Super Quantum Mech Ship Magna Carrier, or just the Super Quantum Ship. Its effects are that you can discard 1 card, target a Super Quantum monster you control. Special summon from your extra deck 1 Super Quantum Mecha Beast Xyz monster with the same attribute as the monster you currently control by using it as the Xyz material, and then that summon is treated as an Xyz summon. And then you can send this card from the fields into the graveyard to target 3 Super Quantum Mech Beast Xyz monsters with different names you control and or in your graveyard, and then you special summon a Super Quantum Great Magnus from your extra deck, and then you attach the target monsters and materials for its Xyz summon. So the basic combo with this is, like I said earlier, you have this on field with a red, green, and a blue. And the way you could usually do that is you have, say, you have blue or green in hand, or just green and an E-Telly, and red also. You control no monsters, you special summon the red layer, and then you E-Telly the blue layer. The blue layer will search the green layer, and then the green layer you normal summon. And then you have 3 cards in hand, you activate the field spell effect, like best plays, of course, Volcanic Shell. Like I said, you discard Shell, summon the red Zord, Shell, pay 500, summon the green Zord, Shell, pay 500, summon the blue Zord. It's just the field spell is like such a great card, and I love it so much. So you can kind of see where that card goes. I'm just kind of getting cards sorted. Apologize for that. And then also, of course, like I mentioned, 3 copies of Emergency Teleport. It's a special summon for blue layer, and then blue layer in turn will search another Super Quantum card, so it makes it getting more Zords onto the field like way easier. So this card's just kind of self-explanatory. It really is going to suck if this card gets hit on the ban list, because a lot of people are predicting it will, just because Cosmos use it. And it's an instant Tin Can, Straw Man, or Farm Girl. But if it doesn't, then that's all fine, dandy. I can still play full power Super Quantums. And the next 2 copies of Terraforming, it can work as either discard fodder for your field spell, or to actually get to the field spell, so just really good overall. The 1 copy of 1-for-1, it sets up, you can discard a Shell to grave and automatically search out the next one, and then also get out your fairy, and then your fairy will in turn get your pilots. And then 1 copy of Instant Fusion, very rarely use this card, that's why I only play 1. It's just good to have it that one time, just to go into either Nord or Panzer Dragon and go for a Zord without having to discard. The next 3 copies of Upstart, just consistency. This deck does search a fair amount, it's just good to go ahead and have all the stuff in hand to go ahead and get your plays off. And then 3 copies of MST, just clear back row, pretty self-explanatory card. This is something I'm teching in for now. It's worked out okay, but I may take it out in the future, I might not. That's 1 Feast of the Wild level 5. Really, really weird card that came out of Duelist Alliance. What it does is you special summon up to 2 level 5 warrior type monsters from your hand and / or your graveyard, but their effects are negated and they can't attack. So if you have 2 of your red pilots in grave, and say you did your green layer into your blue layer would search the field spell, and then you could activate this and then summon your 2 red pilots from grave, or already summon 1 if you have the resources in hand, which is kind of like rare. It's just you got to watch your plays carefully to make sure you have the discard fodder to go into all your Zords. But this card just is really cool whenever you do get it off. Then moving on to the traps, I play 1 Super Quantum Mech Sword Magnus Slayer. If you resolve this card with Great Magnus, it's basically game at that point, or in some cases, you do a crap ton of damage. Where you can equip it to a Super Quantic Xyz monster, and then it gains attack equal to its rank times 100. So if you equip it to Great Magnus, he becomes 4,500, or 46. And then if it attacks a defense position monster, it does piercing. And then you can send this card while it's equipped to a monster to the graveyard. It can make 3 attacks during the battle phase. So if your opponent's field was wide open and you have Great Magnus, you can equip it, make him 46, then send this to grave. You can just go with 36, 36, 36, and OTK him right there. So it's just really, really great. And then a couple of just generic traps. 1 Solemn Warning, 1 Torrential, and 1 Vanities. You can kind of lock your opponent out of plays if you can get a Great Magnus out with 6 materials. And plus the Torrential Tribute's really, really good, because if they try to summon stuff, you can just Torrential during their turn. All of their monsters die, but your Great Magnus won't, because it's not a Super Quantum card, so it's not affected by it. Then moving on to the extra deck, I play 2 copies of Super Quantum Mech Great King Magnus, or if you just want to call him the Megazord. This guy is basically another copy of Towers, essentially. Because he takes 3 level 12 monsters, but you don't summon him that way. You summon him by getting all 3 resorts on the field, sending the field spell to grave, and then you overlay them into him, and then they become the materials. And then his effect is that if he's sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 3 Super Quantum Mech Beasts, Exceeds monsters with different names from your graveyard. So if they do get over this, you can just make another one next turn, just with not as many materials. But he's just like really, really hard card to get over, because if he has 2 or more materials, you can detach material during either player's turn and shuffle 1 card in the field into the deck. If he has 4 or more, he's unaffected by card effects except Super Quantum cards. And then his other effect is that if he has 6 or more, your opponent can't add cards from the deck to hand by card effects. So getting him out with all 3 of the mechs and 3 of the mechs having 1 material, easy 6 material, and he's basically a mistake. And he's unaffected by everything that isn't a Super Quantum card, so even in mirror match, this card would be really difficult to get over. So he's just a really, really crazy monster that you just want to get out as quick as possible. The next 2 copies of Magnaliger. All the Super Quantum cards where they have an effect where they can't attack unless they have Exceeds material. And then they have an effect like this one is like a Volcasaurus effect where you can pop a monster. The green one can pop... or the green one's a Book of Moon, and the blue one's a MST. And then if it has the corresponding pile, like if this one has red layer, Fairboris has green layer, then you can do their detach effect during your opponent's turn also. So he's just really, really good. Just if you can get him with 2 materials, you can detach during their turn and pop a monster and make sure they don't have a lot of stuff on the field to mess around with your Megazord play. And then 3 Ouroboros. Like I said, he's the Book of Moon, and if he has the green pilot, you can do it during your opponent's turn, which is really, really cool. And then 2 copies of Grand Pulse, kind of another MST where you can do it during your opponent's turn, and also 2800 defense, which is really, really big. And then for some Toolbox Rank 4s, I played Diamond Dyer, just more pops, 1 Abyss Dweller, 1 Cowboy, 1 Castell, 1/1/1, and then for our 2 instant fusion targets, Panzer Dragon with red layer, make a Magnaliger. And then 1 Norden, just bring back your green layer, and then make your Ouroboros. So yeah, that is basically it for my Super Quantum deck. This deck's so much fun to play. Unfortunately, it's not the most budget-friendly deck because red layers right now are like $25 because people are playing them in Monarchs. But other than the red layers and maybe a few of the staples like E-Tellies, I'm sure you can get volcanic shells for pretty low rarities for really cheap. The E-Tellies, it's going to get a gold reprint, so if it doesn't get hit, you can get that for really cheap. But the deck's just so much fun to play if you don't mind shelling out a little bit of cash for the red layers. But this deck's so much fun to play, especially if you're like me and you kind of just grew up with Power Rangers and it was like an important part of your childhood. It finally being turned into a Yu-Gi-Oh archetype is just so, so cool, and this deck's really, really fun to play. Probably won't be the most competitive deck, but if you know how to play it right, it can do some really, really crazy combos, and plus, Great Magnus is just annoying to deal with 6 materials. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile. Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, I will catch you guys later.